So we're starting off another day very similar to yesterday. We have a fair, everything's in the red pretty much for the US. And Europe, while we did have a few indices that are just barely in the green, CAC, French index, up like 0.2, 0.3%. We had, what was the other one? FTSE. Everything has been in Europe pretty much red. If we look at the ones that are in red, they're in the red heavy. So we have some things that are in the red in Europe, most of it, and then we have a lot of pressure in the US session. So a lot of things are down right now. Qs are down almost 9 points. NASDAQ futures down 229 points. So on days like today, it's very important that if you are a long only trader, and a lot of stock traders tend to be long only, that you are very picky with your longs when a broad set of indices is, pressing all into the red pre-market. So need to be cautious today. Portfolio, if you have a portfolio positions that are down, you might want to consider, potential options as ways to neutralize risk, to reduce your cost basis. But on days like today, you have to be very, very picky with your longs. And we're seeing, when we look at the Benzinga Pro app here in the movers section, we don't have a whole lot of movers. My general requirement to even just look at something is 600,000 shares pre-market, and we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are at 600,000 pre-market. Last week or the week before, we had days with 10, 15, 20, 30 pre-market 600K and above, or even 1 million shares and above. So we're not seeing that, and that's because there's broader pressure downward on the market, and therefore the ones that are up, it's much fewer and far between. So not a whole lot. And even the ones that I did look in this list, there's only like a couple here that are looking workable, potentially tradable today. So yesterday we kind of had a similar situation where most of the market was down. And so we shifted to much more medium-term plays and option plays to profit and make income, basically. So that's what we're looking for. That's kind of how it's leaning right now, because I'm just not seeing a whole lot. I see two potential plays on the movers right now, and we'll get into that. But I do want to start off with looking at Qs, which is the NASDAQ ETF. I want to look at Tesla, which is in trouble technically. It's the first time I've seen Tesla break a formation like this in a long time. So Tesla's looking not so good right now. Then we're going to look at Bitcoin, which has been an obvious mover as of late, up and down. And so it's definitely lost a little ground, about 10K from the highs. But, then it bounced yesterday, and then it lost more ground, and then it's bounced this morning. It's having a wild morning, and that's affecting Bitcoin stocks. A lot of things that were strong stalwarts before, cannabis stocks down, Bitcoin stocks down, certain tech stocks down. There's a lot of things under pressure today. So we're going to get into it. First, looking at Qs. So as you can see, here's the weekly. We'll start off with that. If we close down this week, this will be the first time we've had a 2-week down close since last year. And so, my main concern right now is here's where our pre-market, which is about 316. I think if we start to lose this right here, then I think we're headed to the low 300s, 304, 305 or something like that. And that's just going to put a lot of pressure on tech, basically, which has been, some of the leaders has been tech, and now it's in trouble. And one of those stalwarts is Tesla. So Tesla, here's the formation that it's broken. It's the first time it's broken a formation like this since way back here. And this is COVID. This is the first COVID sell-off, basically. So if you look at every other Tesla rip, it usually forms a corrective structure and then it launches higher. This is a bigger corrective structure here, but then it launches higher. This time, however, it formed a corrective structure at the top. It's not hugely wide, but it's decently wide. The wider the corrective structure, the more counter trend players you have in the market. If it's a small corrective structure, you have a small presence of counter trend players. When you have wide corrective structures, you have a larger presence of counter trend players because they're pushing back and thus expanding that corrective structure. So this is a pretty decent width for a corrective structure. It's almost $100 top to bottom. And we've now broken below that. It's the first time that this has happened since COVID. And so when you look at this, we are now looking at potentially, if this closes in the red or down, we're looking at 3 weeks of bearish closes, which we haven't really seen anything like that. And they're not meat closes. These are strong closes. We did have one here, but we haven't had one since COVID. So I am willing to suspect that some Tesla longs got tripped, once we broke below and closed below 770, and especially with this week's open. I mean, it's only the second day in the week and it's already down a fair amount. What is that? 768, 710. So it's already down about $50, almost 10% on the week. And 3 weeks ago it was at 867, open at 867. So that's a big drop. I mean, we're almost into bearish. I mean, we're pretty much getting into bearish technical territory. So I think Tesla is a little bit of trouble right now. And the intraday charts aren't really showing me anything that suggests that there's, a massive bounce underway. We have had a little bit of bounce off the lows, but instead of it continuing to rip, it's now moved sideways. So the bounce, strong buying pressure, has now moved sideways. So that means there's a transition from up to sideways in the buying pressure. The buying pressure is not able to make new ground. And we're seeing a series of kind of lower highs in that. So I think if it breaks below 670, then I think it's going to want to reattack 650. And I think if it loses 650, you're going to see some traders stopped out again on that. So Tesla's in trouble. And, for stalwarts to be in trouble, that suggests broader weakness, basically. And Tesla has been a stalwart for a while. So even Bitcoin is showing some ability to rally, but yeah. Okay. So bounce off monthly VWAP. Not surprising we get a little bit of bounce off that. So here's your monthly VWAP, bounce off that. And so it's 3K above that roughly, but it's still under a lot of pressure. This is a big weekly candle. It's basically the same range as this candle and even broke below it. So I think if this weekly candle closes below 44.7, then I think that's going to put pressure on Bitcoin to drop to 42, maybe high 41s. Bitcoin to me it needs to work really hard to show that it's recovering, because I'm not seeing that yet. We had this pretty strong sell-off rip yesterday during Yellen and Powell's testimony. We had a little bit of a bounce here. I mean, this is nice rip, corrective structure, and then rip, but then this is just straight selling. This is impulsive. So we are getting a little bit of bounce here. This is where the monthly VWAP is. So I'm not surprised we're getting a little bit of bounce, but it's got hurdles now. Now the line of least resistance for Bitcoin in the short term is to the upside. And so this is going to act as resistance on the way up. And it's going to need to have an hourly, ideally a 4-hour close above that. That's just to relieve some of the technical pressure, the downside technical pressure. After that, it needs to clear this swing high, which started the most recent leg down. So it's got to clear 51.5, 52 with an hourly close above that. And then you're going to need an hourly close above 55. Otherwise, you're going to continue to see more downward pressure and volatility in Bitcoin right now. So again, more stalwarts like Bitcoin, which has been incredibly strong already, recently made new highs at 58. And shortly after making those new highs has sold off massively. So 13K, that's it's almost 15% roughly. My math is a little slow this morning. So that's what we're seeing on that. Okay. So looking at the Benzinga Pro list here, some of the big movers I want to look at. I want to look at BBIG, which does have some positive news catalyst, and then we'll look at Sunesis, which I think was initiating coverage. I'm trying to think of which one. So BBIG, good symbol, by the way. Vinco Ventures, through partnership with Zash, never heard of them, signs binding letter of intent. So Vinco Ventures, through its partnership with Zash Global Media, Entertainment Corporation, entertainment industry disruptor. It's kind of fluff in the name. We are the disruptor. Well, okay. If you haven't heard it, you're not a disruptor yet. Today, further assesses a momentum announcing signing a binding letter of intent with Ficto video sharing platform. Again, something else I've never heard of. The deal expands Zash ecosystem by combining elements of leading social platforms with the ability to stream content to viewers globally. Okay, so Yeah, and then I guess they have a multi-Emmy award-winning show in here, Everyday Edison's, whatever that is. So it's a positive news catalyst, and it's giving it some legs. But as you can see from the chart here, it ripped, for 15, 20 minutes, and then has been selling off since. It's just been bleeding since then. So definitely an overshoot. So looking at BBIG, if you look at the weekly chart, this stock has a history of fading. It fades intraweek gains, fades intraweek gains. Now it's trying to build a little. It did have an intraweek gain here, and then it's holding a little bit of the gains, but this is not a huge volume buildup. This is just a one candle surge and no volume buildup. So it's not attracting a lot of institutional interest, at least what I'm seeing from the volume levels. I mean, this volume is a little bit more than this, but it's not like steady, continued increasing in interest. So I don't know. The statement seemed a little fluff. It is a positive news catalyst. The high in the day, what was that? Let's mark it. 676. And then let's check it out on the weekly and see where it matches up with long term. Yeah, it's a little, 744 is going to be a little stiff. You got this right here. 750. This. And then you got 950, which is the prior week's all-time high. This week's spike high. But the fact that it started at 150, went to 950, closed at 5, dipped a little bit, and slowly building with another positive news catalyst. I'm assuming this was a positive news catalyst 5 weeks ago. So another positive news catalyst. I don't know. I'm just not totally sold on it. This isn't the kind of thing that's necessarily going to it hasn't been attracting a lot of institutional interest and pre-market volume. Where we at? 9 million, averages 4. Okay, it's not bad. That's not bad. It's double average daily volume, but the fact that it couldn't hold anything leaves me pause. So I think what I'm going to do on this one here is set an alert maybe towards this base over here, 426. If time and sales looks good, I see, somebody large coming in on the bid, I might consider it. Otherwise, I'm going to wait for a break of 683. Or maybe in touch of that, because I might consider fading BBIG. That might be something to fade. This has shown a history of fading. So yeah, we're going to move that back a little bit. SNSS, this did have a positive news catalyst, but I don't remember it being anything gangster. Corelli announced vote approving reverse stock split within range between 3-1 and 6-1 approved issuance of shares. Why are you splitting your stock? That's an interesting question. You're a $3 stock. Why are you splitting your shares? That seems little. Okay, what else we got here? Oppenheimer upgrades Sunesis Pharmaceuticals to outperform, announces $12 price target. Oppenheimer's Hartaj Singh upgrades Sunesis from performing. Okay, so Oppenheimer is no slouch. Victor poised an Ebius patent for nanostatin. Okay, so there has been some positive news. It's merger of partner Viracta Therapeutics notice of Alzheimer's patent. Okay, so they have had a buildup of news. And then a week or so after that news, Oppenheimer probably heard about this news, took a look at it, and they decided to upgrade it to outperform and announce a $12 target. So where's the looking at the movers? We're already at over 100% average daily volume. And are we seeing okay, again, so this can go on a few more ramps and then fade, but it's slowly building a little bit of momentum. Yeah, volume increasing a little bit. So, and then tapering a little bit. So it has built up a little bit of interest. They're announcing a 12, which is pretty much, okay. So either they like the patent upgrade and they feel that the technology is going to bring some value to this, because that's roughly a 300% increase they're forecasting. It's not uncommon for these biotech stocks to do that, get a positive news catalyst. And there is some build out of this. You see how this is different though than the BBIG. Like the BBIG, the volume was just staying on the floor and it never got off this. This then all of a sudden built some interest in volume, waned a little bit as it sold off, and then it's building volume So the volume profile itself is bigger than it was before. This is, a lot more interest than it had before. So this might be an interesting option play. I might look at taking options on this, maybe getting long calls if the IV is cheap, which I'm going to assume it is, considering this thing hasn't moved a whole lot. So yeah, this might be an interesting option play. I'm going to put some notes on this one here. Potential. Okay. So we'll keep an eye on this one here for potential options. The target, I don't entirely see why 12. This target would make a little bit more sense to me, which is just shy of 12. I don't know, 1160, 1150 or something like that. Yeah, 1126. Okay. So this makes more sense to me because of this. You got these spikes here. You got this here. That makes a little bit more sense to me. Otherwise, if you clear that, then there's a lot more room for this to run up to 17 or, wherever that is here, 1745. So potential on this one here. Potential. It got the news and then it lost all of it. So it hasn't built up it wasn't able to hold the gains, and some people, momentum traders, didn't think it was enough. So yeah, it hasn't held. So kind of putting it to the side right now. Okay, a few others. Looking at a Bitcoin stock, SOS, recovering off the overnight lows. It closed yesterday at 995, dropped all the way to 669, and then has recovered a little bit. It's still like Bitcoin, it's got hurdles. Like the first total right here is, you're going to have some resistance right around here and then right around here. At least what I'm seeing. You got weekly VWAP, which will come down on the open once it resets. You have a little bit of pressure here. This is a breakout structure right here. And so impulsive sell-off, good bounce, but it's losing some of this. So if it can't hold this here and it gets back down here, then it's going to be in trouble. So, but it's got line of least resistance short term is to the downside. That's the line of least resistance. We do have some pretty strong support coming in, which is right around 6. I think if we get to 6, I'll add. I didn't expect this thing to go from 16 to 6. We dumped the majority of our SOS position, I think, once we started to get some of that sell-off. And then we took some covered calls on this one here. So it's offsetting some of our cost basis. Our current underlying is definitely underwater right now. I think it's around $12. So we're definitely underwater a little bit on this, but we have some calls that are offsetting that right now. I would definitely accumulate some if we got to 6 and then hold this a little bit longer. Yeah, good build of volume. And so I think if it bounces to 6 and then holds there, I think that can offer a good base. So we'll see how this one holds, but short-term pressure is to the downside on this one here. Cannabis stocks in trouble. Tilray, that is a big, we sold at 64. So I feel pretty lucky in our timing on that one there. We sold the day before the big sell-off. We sold on this candle here, had an overnight rip, and then lost all that really, really fast. So we talked about this bounce being corrective, impulsive, corrective, and the path, I think we said it even last week, was most likely to the downside. It did do that, hit this. Dead can't bounce off this. Let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. So wide corrective structure, decent amount of buyers in. Smaller corrective structure, less buyers in the market. That's less buyers. And then it's just going sideways. So instead of going slightly up, it's now going sideways, and then just impulsive, corrective, impulsive, and another corrective bounce. This bounce off the lows is corrective. It's got, it needs to clear a few hurdles. So again, line of least resistance is to the downside right now. Yeah, here's the corrective structure off the bottom. So line of least resistance is the downside. I feel like it's going to need to clear 25. This looks very much like the, Tesla, I think, or whatever it was, where there's a bounce that was going up and now it's going sideways. So this is going up, now it's going sideways. It's going to need to clear 25. It's going to need to. And then you got some more hurdles. So I don't feel like adding to Tilray at this point, even though we're cheap. I still don't feel like adding to Tilray right now. I'm a long-term bull on Tilray, but this is not a time to be adding at all, in my opinion. Next hurdle it's going to have is weekly view up right here, which will be 26.93.27. So you're going to need a 1 hour close above that first, and then you're going to have to clear this to relieve a good amount of the selling pressure. Until that happens, short-term bearish. It's hard not to be short-term bearish on Tilray. Yeah, you're gonna need to clear this because there was a fair amount of sellers. You know, there was bounce off the lows, pushed, weak, bounce off, and then just sell off. So there are a fair amount of sellers here, mid 29s. And if we were to get above that, get above a close above 30, then they'll probably be stopped out. Any longs, any shorts that were already there, they'll probably be stopped out. So it's got to clear weekly view up, and then it's going to clear almost 30. If it does that, then I think short term there is much more of a balance between buyers and sellers, and it might start to bounce and bring in more. It might start to inspire more technical buyers to come in. That's kind of what I'm seeing on this one, though. Okay, and Freya doing a little bit better, but still under pressure. Not quite as bad as Tilray. It's holding its gains more. So let's look at 4 hour. Yeah, it's definitely holding its gains a little bit better. It's better performing. Again, short-term bearish. You had a decent bounce off of it, but then it went sideways and then very similar. So I suspect it's probably going to try and make another attempt for 15. I won't add it 15 at this point. I don't feel like adding this until it shows me that there's some transition in the selling pressure, and I'm not seeing it yet. So I need this to develop and build a little bit more, and I need to clear some hurdles before I feel like, okay, I'm interested in getting back in. So first hurdle being weekly view up right there, which is just around 20. And then very similar to Tilray, this is the swing high for this next leg down. So you're going to have a good 1 hour, 4 hour close above this to really show me that, okay, this thing is stabilized from this, big sell-off. It hasn't stabilized yet. If it comes back to here correctively, hits this and bounces and makes it all the way up to here, then you just got a large corrective structure that you're playing with here. So at that point, you needed to clear this or to build pressure with higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, building out of that. Until that happens, we haven't transitioned out of this sell-off. So definitely not something I want to add at this point. Okay, so we can do, how are we doing on time? 6.55 minutes of market open. We can do some open Q&A right now. So that means you got to give me the symbol, time frame, 1 cent subscription, bullish or bearish. We'll do rapid fire right now. If you have anything you're looking at, I'll take a look at it, give my analysis, and then we'll go to live trading for our members at 6:30 at market open. Oh man, my tea's not as hot as it should be. Tesla tie-in now with Bitcoin. Sort of. Tesla's wealth is not, they only invested 1.5 billion in Bitcoin. I think they made a few billion profit from that. I don't know if they're exiting out. They have a large position, but you can't look at Tesla's movements as being highly correlated to Bitcoin because it doesn't quite match up that way. So let's take a look here. I'll show you. The structure just doesn't, you can't think of them as equal, like, oh, Bitcoin's selling off, so Tesla's going to sell off. For example, let's look at the weekly here, and then let's do a compare BTCUSD. Bitcoin is only down for this week, whereas this has been selling off for 3 weeks. And Bitcoin was making new highs for weeks. So it's not matching up the structure. Bitcoin, like if this was matching the same, Tesla would have rallied and made new highs, and it hasn't done that. So I don't look at them as one and the same right now. I don't think we can make that comparison. So While Tesla does have some Bitcoin, it's not enough in my opinion to say like, oh, Tesla is going to be down because Bitcoin's down, because again, Bitcoin is only been down this week and it still hasn't even closed the week bullish. So I wouldn't look at those two the same. Not yet. Victor, how to live, no other ticker questions. Okay. I'm not sure I understand your question. Help me out. Durkin, Matt, 1 hour bullish breakout potential on earnings beat. Let's take a look. Which one do I want to? Let's go with this one. Sorry, Tilray. Matt. Mattel, is that what you're thinking? Let's see if we got Mattel. I'm not seeing an earnings beat on Mattel. Is this a different one? Help me out here. Is there another? There's Matza Resources, but that's ASX. No, Matt X. So I'm assuming you're talking about Mattel. I'm assuming. But I don't see, where's the earnings? February 9th. Okay, maybe that's when you're talking surprise to the upside. Okay. So maybe that's when you're talking about. I mean, if it's an earnings, if the earnings was back on the 9th, any earnings at this point, anybody making adjustments due to earnings, that's probably gone. You know, a lot of activity happens before the earnings. That's why you get an IV crush from options, basically. Implied volatility gets crushed after earnings because earnings is out. And unless it's a gangster surprise, usually IV falls massively. So I'm not seeing anything, though, where this thing is. I'm just not seeing anything where this is. It hasn't brought in any new fresh volume or anything like that. I mean, basically, you just got a with trend corrective structure. So, and it's not it's not like holding prior levels, because you have this low, then this low, then this low, then this low, then down here. Yeah, it might be an interesting options play though. If you think that this thing is going to build up and break out of that, because it's in a corrective structure, IV is probably low. So it might be an interesting time to potentially get long calls, in my opinion. Yeah, that might be an interesting play. But I don't see anything per se in the stock in and of itself. There's nothing in the structure right now that's like jumping out or anything. Okay, what else we got? Should we expect a mini crash soon? Possibly. I mean, 2 days right now. I mean, it's 2 days. What are we looking at? 2 weeks on the ES. We're not, and the market's open. ES has still got a little bit more below it. S&P futures. SPY has support around right here, 369. But short-term pressure is bearish for sure. And if we get one of those where this week extends like it's a bigger candle than last week, then that means selling pressure is increasing. So we're not there yet, but we could be. So yeah, keep an eye on this one here. But we're not there yet, but definitely pressure has been down. If you're talking 2 days in a row, that pressure has been down, and Europe is now almost all in the red. There's only one holdout, and that's it. So a lot of pressure right now. VIX is up 7%. Okay, so SYB, I could probably, let's see how many I can get out real quick. SYB commodity trust. Okay, interesting. Good structure. I like the structure. Wall ball, daily bullish. Seems big money moving into commodities market. Yeah, lumber, corn, everything rocketing. I think commodities are underpriced. We've been talking about this with our members for a while. That commodities, I think, are underpriced. That's why we started making plays into commodities. Exchange maybe nice with the commodities play. Yeah, I like this. I like the structure. Structure is really good. Volume, Jesus, 13,000. Like one trade and you've hit the daily volume. Average volume is 133K. So the volume right now is not standing out, but the structure is really, really nice. It's hard to argue against this structure. Like this is something that's consistently building upside pressure. So I think if we were to get a breakout above this here, might be an interesting play. There's no dividend on this one here, so you may want to consider options if you really feel like there's going to be a breakout. Capture it before the gamma. capture from the high gamma if you capture it before the breakout, and low IV right now. That's a very nice structure. That's a good spot. I like that structure. I like that one. Nice spot on that one. Let me put that on my. Okay. Gold stocks versus gold futures. Which one is better to invest? I prefer gold stocks. And I also like, especially gold stocks that I can do options on. I can't do options on futures, so I don't have that with this account. So I would choose gold stocks. I thought I saw they beat earnings. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they did beat earnings. Yeah, but that was days ago. So that any sort of pressure from that is already done. I was joking about that. How to. I do like your philosophy, Josh. Appreciate it. Okay, that looks like it right now. So yeah, soybean, I like this one. I like commodities. Keep your eye on major indices. Pressure is definitely on. They're all down. Yeah, this is, in my opinion, this is gonna flush lower. Like, I'll be shocked if we don't break 315.69. So who knows? Maybe I'll do some option plays on this one. Maybe some bear puts or something like that. Bear put spreads. We'll see. But pressure is on. Definitely pressure is on, and Bitcoin is still, it's still got work to do. So long term, I'm bullish on Bitcoin. I still am holding to my prediction. This is just my prediction. It's my opinion, but I think Bitcoin will hit 100K this year. And so, yeah, that's what I see happening on Bitcoin this year. But for now, short term, under pressure. Anything happening? Yeah, it's already faded all this and nothing here. Yeah. Okay. Sweet. So nice spot on the soybean there. Or who was that? Wall ball. Nice spot on the soybean. I like that one. Yeah. I think commodities is probably one of the few things that's going to be holding right now. Okay. I got to go to live trading with Trading Masterclass members. So good luck trading today, everybody. I hope you make some money. Go make some money. Remember to focus on your plan and execute your plan first. And remember, your first job as a trader is to control risk, and if and only you can control risk, do you then try and extract alpha out of the market. If you can't control risk, you do not move to stage 2. Super, super important. So good luck trading today, and I will